No doctor could save the Mafia boss' son until a black waitress stepped forward and did the impossible, leaving everyone speechless and the Mafia boss in tears. Dominic Valeriano adjusted the cuff of his bespoke charcoal suit, a subtle movement that did little to ease the iron-hard tension in his jaw. He watched his 7-year-old son, Nico, navigate the polished granite floors of the Valeriano wing at St. Jude's General. The crutches were an offense, a constant, grating reminder of his own powerlessness. He could make governors tremble with a single phone call, yet he couldn't help his own child walk. The irony was a bitter pill. Mr. Valeriano, the O'Connell brothers are getting restless, his right-hand man, Rocco, murmured, materializing at his side. Rocco's voice was a low rumble, never loud but always heard. In the pristine corridor, lined with plaques honoring the Valeriano family's generous contributions that ensured their absolute control over the facility, the words felt profane. "Let them wait," Dominic snapped, his gaze locked on Nico. The boy paused, his small hands gripping the supports with a fierce determination that both shattered and fortified his father's heart. Dr. Matthews approached, his face a carefully constructed mask of professional sympathy that already screamed failure. The experimental gene therapy from Germany had yielded nothing. "Dominic, I'm afraid we've reached the end of the line with conventional approaches." Dominic's hands coiled into fists at his sides. 3 years. Millions of dollars poured into research, specialists flown in from around the globe, and still, his son faced every day with a courage that put grown men to shame. Nico's condition, a rare form of inherited neuropathy, had baffled every expert. It slowly degraded the connection between his brain and his legs, a cruel, invisible thief. "Daddy, can we go to that place with the good fries?" Nico asked, his smile a beacon in the sterile gloom. The question cut through Dominic's simmering rage, a reminder of the small boy beneath the medical mystery. "Anything you want, son," Dominic replied, his voice softening as he effortlessly lifted Nico into his arms, crutches and all. The boy's laughter was a sound more valuable than any territory Dominic had ever claimed. They arrived at the corner booth diner 20 minutes later, a place so unassuming it was practically invisible. Dominic, in his tailored suit, felt like a wolf in a sheep pen amidst the worn vinyl and checkered linoleum, but Nico's undisguised joy made the discomfort irrelevant. "Welcome to the corner booth. Table for 2. The voice was like warm honey, smooth and rich with an undercurrent of intelligence that made Dominic look up from his phone. A black woman stood before them, an order pad in her hand. Her dark hair was styled in a crown of intricate braids, and she wore the standard black uniform, but her posture was one of quiet command. Her deep brown eyes held a depth that spoke of a life lived far beyond the walls of this humble diner. "By the window," Dominic said, his tone clipped. "You must be Nico," the woman said, crouching to meet the boy's gaze with a natural, disarming grace. "I've heard you're the city's foremost expert on French fries." Nico beamed, instantly captivated. "Daddy says I'm a connoisseur." "A connoisseur," she repeated with mock seriousness. "That's very impressive. You must have a highly developed palate." As they moved to the table, Dominic noted her stride, economical, balanced, almost clinical. She moved with the precision of someone trained for high-stress environments, not the weary shuffle of a waitress at the end of a long shift. "Need a hand with those?" she asked Nico, gesturing to his crutches with a matter-of-fact kindness that stood in stark contrast to the pity he usually received. "I've got it," Nico said, proudly maneuvering himself into the booth. "I can see that. Your upper body strength and coordination are excellent," she replied. Dominic's head snapped up. It wasn't just a compliment, it was a professional assessment. "You seem to know a lot about physical therapy for a waitress," Dominic stated, his voice a low challenge laced with suspicion. A shadow flickered in her eyes before her professional smile returned, perfectly in place. "I've had some experience with mobility challenges," she said, her voice smooth and diplomatic. "Now, what can I get for you gentlemen?" As she took their order, Dominic found himself studying her hands. They were elegant and well cared for, yet the way she held the pen was with a practiced, steady grip he'd seen on surgeons. Her handwriting on the pad was precise, almost medical in its clarity. When she returned with their food, Nico was struggling to tear open a ketchup packet, his fingers fumbling with the frustrating task. The waitress, whose name tag read Imani, watched for a moment before sliding into the booth next to him. "May I show you a trick?" she asked gently. Sometimes it's not about strength, but about leverage. She guided Nico's hands, subtly adjusting his grip. The packet tore open easily. Dominic watched, transfixed. Her touch was sure and therapeutic. "There you go," Imani explained. "You just needed to engage your arm muscles differently." Dominic nearly choked on his water. The arm muscles? That was not waitress vocabulary. "Are you sure you just serve food here?" he asked directly, his instinct screaming that something was amiss. Imani's expression tightened. "I serve food. Is there a problem with that?" "Nothing wrong with honest work," Dominic replied, his eyes narrowing. "You just have an interesting skill set." "People are full of surprises, Mr. Valeriano," she said, a faint smile playing on her lips. The use of his name was a jolt. He hadn't said it. Imani's composure barely wavered. "You're Dominic Valeriano. There was a piece in the paper about your family's charitable foundation." It was a smooth recovery, but Dominic wasn't buying it. This woman read financial news and knew specific details about his legitimate business fronts. His intrigue was sharpening into a predatory focus. "Daddy, can Imani eat with us?" Nico asked suddenly. "She knows about thumb muscles and she likes fries, too." Dominic expected a polite refusal, but she hesitated. He found himself saying, "Please, join us," surprised by the genuine invitation in his own voice. As Imani settled across from them, he watched her unconsciously assess Nico's posture in the booth. Every instinct, honed by years of reading men in high-stakes situations, told him this woman was hiding a past as deep and guarded as his own. "So, Imani," he began, leaning back with the deceptive ease of a predator. "What brings a woman with your talents to a place like this?" Imani's fork paused over her salad as Dominic's question settled between them. She could feel his intense gaze, dissecting her every move. "Life doesn't always follow the plan," she answered carefully, her voice measured. "Sometimes you end up in places you never intended." "That's a philosophical way of looking at it," Dominic observed, a hint of warmth softening the interrogation. "I prefer to think of it as being adaptable," she countered with a small, challenging smile. "It's surprising what you can learn about the world when you're not insulated by power and assumptions." Dominic raised an eyebrow, a flicker of respect in his eyes. "Touché. Though I'd say my curiosity is justified when a waitress starts discussing neuromuscular engagement with my 7-year-old. Are you guys having one of those talks where you say stuff but you mean other stuff?" Nico asked, his perception startlingly acute. Imani let out a genuine laugh, a beautiful sound that lit up her entire face. "Your son is exceptionally bright, Mr. Valeriano. He gets it from his mother," Dominic said, the words automatic, followed by the familiar clench in his chest. Isabella had been gone for 3 years, a casualty of the life he led, and the grief was a phantom limb, always aching. Imani's expression shifted, her gaze softening with an empathy that felt deeply personal. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said quietly. Dominic stared at her, caught off guard. "How did you know?" "The way your voice changed." "The tension in your shoulders," she replied. Grief is a universal language. She seemed to catch herself again, pulling back from the observation. "You notice a lot," Dominic said, his tone no longer suspicious, but intrigued. "Imani," Nico piped up, "do you know how to help people who can't walk good?" The question landed with the force of a physical blow. Imani's body went rigid, her fingers gripping her fork so tightly her knuckles whitened. Dominic filed the reaction away. "I know a little," she said cautiously. "Because my legs don't listen to me," Nico said with heartbreaking simplicity. "And the doctors don't know how to fix them. But when you helped me with the ketchup, my hand listened better." Dominic watched as a storm of emotions crossed Imani's face, surprise, a flicker of what looked like clinical recognition, and then a profound, weary sadness. Nico, she began gently, her voice taking on a quiet authority that commanded Dominic's full attention. Would you mind if I took a look at how you hold things? Just to see if there are other little tricks that might make things easier. This was no longer a waitress making conversation. This was an expert making an assessment. Dominic nodded his assent, his caution completely overridden by a desperate surge of hope. Imani moved to Nico's side, her actions precise and purposeful. She watched him pick up a French fry, observed his grip on his glass, her eyes cataloguing every detail. Nico, can you make a fist for me? Good. Now, can you tap each finger to your thumb, one at a time? Perfect. Her voice was a soothing balm of professionalism. Your fine motor control is actually quite good, she murmured, and Dominic felt his breath catch. Dr. Matthews had used those exact words. Try this, she said, guiding Nico to position his hand differently as he reached for his glass. Initiate the movement from your shoulder. Let the signal flow down your arm instead of forcing it from your wrist. The change was immediate. Nico's movement was smoother, more controlled, less shaky. Dominic leaned forward, his heart pounding. How did you know to do that? He demanded, his voice tight. Imani froze, realizing she had revealed far too much. I've helped people with similar issues before. What people? Where? Dominic pressed, his desperation shattering his composure. And don't tell me you learned that between coffee refills. It's complicated, Imani said, her walls going back up. My son's life is complicated. Dominic shot back, the raw plea of a father in his voice. So please, help me understand how a waitress in a diner knows more about his condition than the top neurologists in the country. Imani looked at Nico, who was happily practicing his new grip, and then back at Dominic. The raw, unguarded hope in his eye seemed to break through her defenses. I used to be a pediatric neurorehabilitant specialist, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Before I came here. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Used to be? Why did you stop? Because sometimes the system you believe in betrays you, she replied, a bitter edge to her words. Not everything can be fixed with money and influence, Mr. Valeriano. Sometimes, they're the very things that cause the damage. The challenge in her voice was unmistakable. She was speaking his language. You're right, he said, the admission stunning them both. Money hasn't cured him. But knowledge can. Experience can. And you clearly have both. What are you asking me? She said warily. I'm asking you to help my son, Dominic said with stark simplicity. Name your price. Whatever you need, whatever happened in your past, none of it matters if you can help Nico. Nico looked between them, sensing the immense gravity of the moment. Imani, will you help me? Her professional composure finally cracked. Nico, you're perfect just the way you are. Any help I offer is just giving you tools to make things easier. Dominic pulled a sleek, black card from his jacket and wrote his private number on the back. Take your time, he said. But please, consider it. What happened before doesn't have to define what you do now. Imani took the card, their fingers brushing for a fraction of a second. The contact was electric, a jolt of unexpected awareness that made them both pull back. I should get back to work, she said, her professional mask not quite hiding the turmoil in her eyes. As she walked away, Dominic knew he had just met the one person who might hold the key to his son's future, and he would let nothing and no one stand in his way to secure her help. 3 days later, Dominic's private phone vibrated. He was in the middle of a tense negotiation with a rival family when he saw the unfamiliar number. He stepped onto the balcony, the city skyline sprawling beneath him. This is Dominic. Mr. Valeriano, it's Imani Carter from the diner. Her voice was more formal, guarded. Dominic felt a surge of relief so potent it surprised him. Imani. I was beginning to think I wouldn't hear from you. I've been thinking, she said. If I agree to work with Nico, there are conditions. Dominic almost smiled. Of course there were. The most valuable assets always came with terms. I'm listening. First, This is a professional therapeutic relationship. I need his complete medical history and full access to his current doctors. Second, we work in a neutral space. Not your home. Somewhere he can be a kid, not a patient. Third, she paused, her voice hardening slightly, my past is off limits. You're hiring me for what I can do for Nico now, not to satisfy your curiosity. The final condition told him everything. The wound was deep and unhealed. Agreed, he said without hesitation. When do we start? Their first session took place in a small, private gym Imani had found. When Dominic arrived with Nico, she was already there, dressed in athletic wear that revealed a toned, strong physique. She had transformed the space with colorful mats and therapy balls, and was reviewing a thick binder of Nico's medical files. She had done her homework. For the next hour, Dominic watched in awe as Imani conducted the most thorough, insightful, and engaging evaluation of his son he had ever seen. She turned grueling diagnostic tests into games, identifying subtle compensatory patterns and muscle weaknesses that a dozen specialists had overlooked. She didn't just see a patient, she saw Nico. All right, champ, she said after the assessment. Time for the fun part. She guided Nico through a series of exercises that looked deceptively simple but were clearly targeting the specific neurological pathways his condition affected. She modified her approach in real time, responding to his body's feedback with an intuitive genius that was nothing short of miraculous. Feel that? She asked as Nico completed a movement with newfound stability. That's your core talking to your legs. They're starting to remember how to work together. Wow, Nico breathed, his eyes wide with a mixture of effort and triumph. It feels connected. Dominic felt a lump form in his throat. In 1 hour, Imani had given his son more progress and more hope than an army of doctors had in 3 years. She had given him a feeling of capability, not of limitation. Imani, Dominic said during a water break. Where did you train? Her professional mask slipped back on. We agreed my past was not part of our arrangement. This isn't curiosity, he pressed gently. This is a father needing to understand the miracle worker he's entrusted with his son. Before she could answer, Nico shouted, Imani, watch. He was attempting one of the exercises on his own, his determination absolute. Excellent work, Nico, she encouraged, her expression softening as she turned back to Dominic. His neuroplasticity is exceptional. He has a fighter's spirit. Neuroplasticity. The word hung in the air, another piece of evidence of the world-class expertise she was trying to hide. As they left, Nico threw his arms around her. You're the best helper ever, Imani. Can you be my friend, too? Of course, sweetheart, she replied, her formidable walls melting away completely under the warmth of his son's affection. Walking to his car, Dominic made a decision. He would respect her boundaries. He wouldn't push her for answers. He would earn her trust the way she was earning Nico's, through consistency, respect, and tangible results. But as he drove away, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was not just finding a cure for his son, but a connection for himself with the fascinating, guarded woman who was bringing light back into their world. The anonymous email arrived on a Tuesday, a digital viper slithering into his encrypted inbox. The subject line read, a warning regarding Nico's therapist. Dominic's blood ran cold. He opened it. Mr. Valeriano, you need to know who you've allowed near your son. 3 years ago, Dr. Imani Carter was stripped of her medical license after her reckless experimental treatment resulted in the permanent paralysis of a 9-year-old girl. The malpractice suit uncovered gross negligence and falsified research data. She destroyed a child's life. Protect your son before she does it again. Attached were court documents, medical board findings, and news articles. The photos showed a younger Imani, her face bright with promise as she accepted research awards. Dr. Imani Carter, a prodigy in pediatric neurology, a rising star. The fall from grace had been brutal and total. The betrayal was a physical blow. She hadn't just omitted details, she had lied about the very core of who she was. The expertise he admired was the same expertise that had allegedly crippled another child. How could he have been so foolish? His phone buzzed. It was a text from Imani. "Hi Dominic. Looking forward to Saturday. Nico's progress is fantastic. I have some new bilateral coordination exercises for him." The casual normalcy of it felt like a mockery. He called her immediately, his voice devoid of all warmth. "Imani. We need to talk. Now." "Dominic? What is it? Is Nico okay?" The concern in her voice was immediate. "Nico's fine. It's you I'm worried about, Dr. Carter." The silence on the other end of the line was a chasm. When she finally spoke, her voice was a ghost of itself. "How?" "Someone who cares about my son's safety sent me the truth," he said, his voice like ice. "The question is why you didn't." "Dominic, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" "That you lied about your name? That you're a disgraced doctor who lost her license for crippling a little girl? That you've been experimenting on my son?" "It wasn't like that." Her voice broke with 3 years of contained agony. "The treatment was working. I was trying to save her, not hurt her." The medical board disagreed. The courts disagreed. The family of the girl who will never walk again because of your arrogance disagreed. A sob tore through the phone. "You don't understand. The evidence was manipulated. I was set up. They wanted my research, so they destroyed me to get it." "A conspiracy," Dominic sneered, though a tiny sliver of doubt pricked at his certainty. "Convenient. I have proof," she pleaded. "Documents I've been too afraid to show anyone. The people who did this to me are powerful." The fury was too great. "Even if that were true, you lied to me. You put my son in danger by hiding who you are. How can I trust a single word you say?" "Because you've seen the results," she cried. "Nico is getting better. My science is real, not the lies they used to ruin me. Please, Dominic, don't let them take this from him, too." "The treatment is over," he said with chilling finality. "Don't contact me again. Don't come near my son. If you do, you'll regret it." He ended the call, the silence in his office roaring in his ears. He had been played for a fool, and Dominic Valeriano did not suffer fools. But as the rage subsided, it was replaced by a hollow ache. He couldn't erase the image of Nico's triumphant smile, or the sound of his laughter during their sessions. If she was so dangerous, why was his son getting better? That evening, Dominic called his top investigator, Marcus Kane, a man who moved through the city's underbelly like a phantom. "I need you to find out everything about a disgraced doctor named Imani Carter. And the people who destroyed her? I want the truth. You have 48 hours. 48 hours later, Kane laid a folder on Dominic's desk that unraveled a conspiracy of breathtaking greed. Dr. Alastair Finch, Imani's former mentor and department head, had orchestrated her downfall. He saw the billion-dollar potential in her revolutionary research and systematically stole it. The patient's paralysis wasn't caused by Imani's protocol, it was caused by a conflicting medication Finch himself had secretly administered, then he'd falsified the records to frame Imani. 3 days after her license was revoked, Finch secured a massive federal grant using Imani's stolen research, verbatim. The family of the paralyzed girl had been paid for their silence and moved out of state. The truth hit Dominic like a physical blow. Imani had been telling the truth. She was a victim, not a villain. And he, in his fear and arrogance, had become just another one of her persecutors. "Where is she now?" Dominic asked, his voice tight. "Gone," Kane replied. "Quit her job, cleared out her apartment. Left no trace. Looks like she was planning on leaving the country for good." The thought of Imani, alone and broken, fleeing because of him, ignited a fire in Dominic's soul. "Find her," he commanded. "I don't care what it takes. Find her." He would tear down the man who had ruined her. He would restore her name. And then, he would face the impossible task of begging for forgiveness from the woman he'd so brutally wronged, the woman he was beginning to realize he could not live without. 2 days of relentless searching led them to a small, coastal town hours away. Dominic drove through the night, rehearsing apologies that all felt hollow and inadequate. He found her on the porch of a quiet inn, watching the sunrise. She looked fragile, the fight finally gone from her eyes. When she saw him, there was no surprise, only a weary resignation that cut him to the quick. "How did you find me?" she asked, her voice flat. "I have my ways," he said, standing before her. "Imani, I know everything. About Finch, the stolen research, the setup. I know the truth." Her coffee cup trembled. "It doesn't matter anymore." "It matters," he insisted, his voice raw with urgency. "Finch has been arrested. The medical board is reopening your case. Your name is going to be cleared." For the first time, a flicker of emotion crossed her face, hope, quickly extinguished by pain. "That doesn't change what you said to me. How quickly you believed the worst. How easily you threw me away." Her words were a blade to his heart. "You're right. I failed you. I let my fear make me cruel, and I will never forgive myself for that. I'm not asking you to forget what I did." "Then what are you asking?" He looked into her deep brown eyes, stripped of all pretense. "I'm asking for a chance to earn back your trust. I'm asking you to come home. Not just for Nico. For me. Our family isn't whole without you." He took a breath, laying his soul bare. "I need you, Imani. Not as a therapist. As the woman who sees past the monster and challenges me to be a better man. The woman I've fallen in love with." Tears welled in her eyes, but a small, tentative smile touched her lips. "You know this is insane, right? A mafia boss and a disgraced doctor." He returned the smile, a weight lifting from his soul. "Let them talk. But if we do this, I have a condition." He knelt before her, taking her hands in his. "I want the whole world to know Dr. Imani Carter. I'll build you a research institute, fund your work, give you everything you need to continue the work that was stolen from you. I want you to heal thousands of children, starting with our son." She looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw not the fearsome crime boss, but the desperate father and the vulnerable man. "I have a condition, too," she said softly. "Next time, you come to me. You ask me for the truth. I promise," he vowed, his voice thick with emotion. "From now on, it's you and me against the world." As she leaned in and kissed him, Dominic knew he had found something far more valuable than power or control. He had found grace. 6 months later, the Richardson Valeriano Pediatric Research Institute opened its doors. Dr. Imani Carter, soon to be Valeriano, stood at the podium, a beacon of brilliance and resilience, her name fully restored and celebrated. Dominic watched from the front row, Nico sitting beside him, fidgeting in a tiny suit, his legs still, strong, and steady. The crutches were a distant memory. Later that night, on the rooftop overlooking the city, under a canopy of stars, Dominic got down on one knee again. Nico stood beside him, holding a small velvet box. "Imani," Dominic began, his voice filled with a love that had been tested by fire. "We are a broken, complicated, messy pair. But together, we make something whole. Will you marry us? Will you be my wife, and officially become the mother you already are to Nico?" Nico opened the box, revealing a ring with a diamond as bright and unbreakable as her spirit. "Please say yes, Imani," the boy whispered. "I already tell everyone you're my mom." Through tears of joy, Imani whispered back, "Yes. 1,000 times, yes." As Dominic slid the ring onto her finger, he knew their story was not a fairy tale. It was something far better. It was a testament to the fact that sometimes, the greatest healing comes not from medicine or money, but from a love brave enough to face the darkness and build a new life in the light. And in the center of their new world was a little boy, once broken, now whole, the living proof of their impossible, miraculous love.